Hey everyone, today we're doing something a little bit different. Recently I was playing some of the older games in my Steam library and I came across this, Valley. I played a little and remembered that, oh yeah, I really like this game. Released in 2016 by Blue Isle Studios, the Slender Games people, in case you're not familiar, it's a cool little indie game that's actually very good, so cast aside any bias you may have, this game deserves to be judged by its own merit and definitely isn't streamer bait. I've heard this game get some flack for its visuals, and while it may not look like a AAA title from 2016, it also isn't a AAA game. I think on a technical level this game looks fine, and it definitely punches above its weight, especially for an indie title built on Unity. Not to mention that this game knew what it wanted to be visually and did a damn good job. More on that later though. As for audio, it's not bad quality or anything, but sometimes it does get absurdly loud and there's not a ton of mixing you can do with in-game settings.
Security screening and clearance is in effect. All personnel entering cargo bay require appropriate badge identification.
You can pick your gender, and there isn't any functional difference beyond the sound they make when they grunt. The player character is a semi-silent protagonist. They aren't voice acted, but you do hear their inner monologue sometimes via text on the screen. You are a treasure hunter stroke investigator of some sort on the trail of the mythical life seed. Like any good protagonist would, you pack up and canoe your way into unknown lands, completely alone and totally unprepared. You ultimately brain yourself and wake up in a cave, just so happening to arrive at your destination by luck. A little ways ahead we find the Leap Effortlessly Through Air functionality suit, or the Leaf suit. That's a long walk for that acronym. At this point we need to pivot and talk about the voice acting. Some of it is...
Welcome to the Pathfinder program. As a Pathfinder, you will be tasked with operating and testing the newly developed Leaf suit as our hard-working scientists at Pendulum develop new ways to empower our troops fighting the war in Europe.
and some of it is perfectly serviceable.
Virginia King. Audio Journal, June 4th, 1941. Shortly after the outbreak of war in Europe, I was enlisted by the Army to study the history of this valley.
Now that we have the suit, this game comes to life. Running and jumping feels great. You build momentum as you run down slopes, and jumping lets you take to the air, with most of your momentum intact. If you run off a ramp or a steep enough bank, you will also take to the air. It feels good. The soundtrack adapts to your movements too. It comes alive as you build speed, and long jumps prompt these heavy swells. It all boils together to be something fun and intensely experiential. This video won't do it justice. If you're not interested in the movement and the dynamic soundtrack, this game just isn't for you. The world has basically 2 or 3 aesthetics that meet and blend into each other. Beautiful, pristine nature, crumbling mid-century military sites, and ancient stone brick ruins. These lace into each other wonderfully to be both beautiful and eerie in some locations. The locals are long gone, but it's clear they had some sort of magic. The doors to some ruins require these mystical-looking trees to be alive, which brings us to another function of your suit. You can give or take life from the things around you. This mechanic is central, as your energy meter is the main resource of the game. Health, suit fuel, ammunition, it's all this one bar, which makes this game feel pretty tense sometimes, even though there's little to no real combat. That said, if you die, you come back to life thanks to the suit, at the cost of the valley slowly dying off. I guess now we should talk about the story. If you'd like to avoid spoilers, jump to the time on the screen. Are they gone? Okay, time to go. It's not super deep, and much of it is told over notes left around the scenery. And while the story is pretty competently told, it does have a bad tendency of repeating itself in a way that might irk some people. The game has you chasing after the mythical life seed in a remote part of the Canadian Rocky Mountains. On your way, you discover the remains of a World War II/Cold War era military R&D project named Pendulum, and gain insights into what it was and why it ultimately failed through the recordings of 2 key characters. Virginia King, an anthropologist, and Andrew Fisher, a physicist. As you wander through the valley, which Virginia has dubbed Susurrus, she fills you in on some basic information. The Life Seed is a mythological doombringer capable of shattering worlds. The government plans to use it as an alternative energy source, etc. She's very clearly not happy that the project is going on, feeling that the natural beauty and historical importance of the valley are more important than the government's interest in it. On the other hand, we have Dr. Fisher. Fisher is very clearly ambitious, and he wants his project and the Leaf Suits to be a decisive factor in the US's war efforts. He eventually explains that the Leaf Suit confers a functional immortality to the wearer, as upon death it will shift the person's consciousness into an alternate timeline, leaving no one any the wiser. This effect isn't free, however, as the suit will consume the lives of other things around it. This is sorta just technobabble and doesn't really make sense as it's described, but it's not a deal breaker for me. This is where Miss King becomes important again. As the project scaled up production, she noticed the valley wasn't doing so hot and began investigating. Eventually she, and by extension we, discover that Pendulum isn't just making leaf suits and working as a power plant, but instead is developing bombs. We also get to see Fisher spiral as his ego grows and the Manhattan Project becomes a success. He begins pushing the workers in the facility to the limit. Inevitably, these two clash. Virginia tries to shut down the project and is ultimately arrested and held until she can be tried for treason by a military tribunal, but you complete her work, disabling the facility and saving the valley. I'll say now that this is not a complete summary. I've left some of the key points out because I want you to go play this game, and revealing too much might hurt your experience with it. It's very narrative driven, and having that spoiled too hard might not leave you anything to enjoy. It's $15, which is maybe about $5 per hour of game time if you don't hunt for upgrades or explore any. The game is pretty short, but I think the price evens out. With the story covered in broad strokes, I want to briefly talk about some real-life folklore that finds its way in the valley. Virginia believes that the ancient Caesarean natives worship the Siteka, red-haired cannibalistic giants. The Siteka are a corruption of a real extinct tribe of Native Americans, the Saiduka. The Siteka are a pet theory of some conspiracy theorists and cryptid hunters, so if you would like to read some interesting paranormal fiction, give it a Google, but I'll give you some broad strokes. The claims about red hair comes from an account from the 1822 book Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims, where the author details a legend about the tribe and mentions their family has an heirloom dress trimmed with their red hair. Dark hair will naturally degrade to a red color over time if kept in the right conditions. As for the gigantism, most crack those claims up to tourist bait or just mistaken identification of animal bones. While there was some evidence of cannibalism among the Saiduka, it seems to have been rare and was likely only done during dire famine. Susurrus, by the way, means whisper. Given how loud this game can be at times, I'm not sure it fits. It kind of feels like they wanted to call the game Valley of Whispers, but decided that wasn't good enough, and so they broke out the thesaurus. That's it for the review, but if you'd like to stick around, I'd like to talk about the channel a little. Some of you may be wondering when the next Babadogi lore video is, and don't worry, Gen 9 is on the way. I batch recorded the entirety of Alchemist, so that took some time, and I've been focusing more on some miscellaneous content to fill that gap, rather than just let the channel sit. I've started a Steam group, which I will link in the description. I'll be posting some text reviews there and curating the games that I review on the channel. If you're interested in that, please go check it out. This will be the first game in the curation list, but there should be more to come. Lastly, I recently opened a Patreon. If you want to support me and my content, that is available in the link below. My patrons get placed in the credits of every video, and the higher tier gets a private place on my Discord to make video suggestions, ask questions, and so on. I hope to offer more as the channel grows, but just know that I appreciate any and all support. If you like my content, I would appreciate if you would like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, as that really helps me and the channel. Thank you all for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye! Special thanks to my patrons EmiJenn and SUNFLARE for all their support.